The weight of two worlds. Michael Davies had perfected the art of running on empty. For 3 years since his wife Bethany walked out, he'd been juggling the impossible math of single parenthood and corporate survival. His 7-year-old daughter Sophie was the center of his universe. But his job at Pinnacle Solutions demanded a commitment that didn't account for parent-teacher conferences, sick days, or the fact that after-school programs closed at 6 o'clock sharp. The dark circles under his eyes had become permanent fixtures. His co-workers joked that he lived on coffee and determination, and they weren't wrong. Every morning began at 5:30 with Sophie's lunch preparation, followed by the careful orchestration of getting a spirited 7-year-old dressed, fed, and ready for school. By the time he dropped her at Riverside Elementary and fought rush hour traffic to the office, he was already exhausted. The real work hadn't even begun. The sword hanging overhead. Victoria Hayes arrived at Pinnacle Solutions 3 months ago with a reputation that preceded her like thunder before a storm. The new director of operations was known for efficiency, results, and a zero-tolerance policy for underperformance. She'd transformed struggling departments at 3 previous companies, which sounded impressive until you learned that transformation often meant significant downsizing. Within her first week, she'd restructured the entire client services division. Within a month, 15 employees had been let go. The office atmosphere shifted from collaborative to survival mode. Everyone became hyper-aware of their metrics, their attendance records, their perceived value to the organization. Michael knew his numbers weren't good. Not because he lacked skill, quite the opposite. When he could focus solely on work, his client satisfaction scores were exceptional. His technical knowledge was comprehensive. His problem-solving abilities were creative and effective. But the past 6 months had been brutal. Sophie had contracted pneumonia in September, requiring 2 weeks of intensive care and monitoring. In October, her school called during a crucial client presentation because she'd had a meltdown about her mother's absence during Family Heritage Day. November brought a stomach virus that swept through her classroom, leaving Michael splitting his attention between conference calls and holding back his daughter's hair. The Command Performance annual holiday party invitation arrived with language that made attendance feel less optional and more mandatory. All team members are strongly encouraged to attend this important company tradition. Translation: your commitment to Pinnacle Solutions will be noted and evaluated. Michael stared at the embossed invitation, calculating costs. Finding overnight childcare meant calling in favors he'd already exhausted. His neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was reliable but getting older and couldn't handle Sophie's occasional night terrors. The babysitting service charged premium rates for evening hours. He couldn't afford it, but he couldn't afford not to attend either. The week before the party, Sophie seemed unusually clingy. She'd started a new ritual of making Michael promise 3 times before bed that he'd be there when she woke up. Her therapist explained it was normal for children of abandonment to develop anxiety around separation, especially approaching the holidays when maternal absence felt more pronounced. Understanding the psychology didn't make it easier to manage the reality. The gilded cage, the Riverside Grand Hotel's crystal ballroom dripped with corporate excess. String lights created a warm ambience that contrasted sharply with Michael's internal anxiety. He'd borrowed a suit from his brother, slightly too big in the shoulders. Paired with a tie Sophie had chosen because it had tiny penguins on it. She'd kissed it for good luck before he left. Her small face, serious with the weight of their temporary separation. Michael moved through the party like an actor playing a role. He laughed at appropriate moments during conversations with colleagues from accounting. He nodded thoughtfully while the marketing team debated their latest campaign strategy. He accepted a glass of champagne he had no intention of drinking because his hands needed something to hold besides his constantly buzzing phone. He was mid-conversation with Trevor from IT when the text arrived. The words appeared on his screen like a verdict. Sophie woke up screaming about her mum. Won't calm down. Says she dreamed you disappeared too. Please come home. His heart dropped into his stomach. This was the worst kind. The nightmares that convinced her everyone she loved would eventually vanish. The ones that required his physical presence, his arms around her, his voice promising over and over that he was real and staying and would never leave her. The interception. Michael excused himself with vague pleasantries and began navigating toward the exit. He'd made it halfway across the ballroom when a voice stopped him cold. "Leaving early, Mr. Davies." Victoria Hayes stood directly in his path, elegant in a charcoal dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her expression was unreadable. Those sharp eyes that dissected quarterly reports now focused entirely on him. She held a glass of red wine with the casual confidence of someone who'd never questioned their place in any room. "I have a family emergency," Michael managed, trying to keep desperation out of his voice. Professional.com don't beg. Victoria studied him for a long moment, her gaze moving from his borrowed suit to his white-knuckled grip on his phone. Something flickered across her face, too quick to identify. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, meant only for him. "We need to talk. Follow me." It wasn't a request. Michael's mind raced through worst-case scenarios as he followed her through the crowd, past clusters of laughing executives, toward the hallway leading to the restrooms. She was going to fire him right now, at the holiday party, because he was trying to leave early for his daughter. The cruelty of the timing felt almost surreal. Victoria checked the women's restroom, found it empty, and gestured him inside. Michael hesitated for only a second before following. The door clicked shut behind them, muffling the party's noise to a distant hum. She turned to face him, her professional mask still firmly in place, but something in her eyes had softened, just slightly. "This stays between us, Mr. Davies," she began, and Michael braced himself for the words that would shatter his carefully balanced world. The unexpected truth. Michael's pulse hammered in his ears as he stood in the women's bathroom, surrounded by marble counters and soft lighting that felt absurdly elegant for what he assumed would be his professional execution. Victoria Hayes set her wine glass on the counter with deliberate precision, then crossed her arms, studying him with an intensity that made him want to shrink. "I've been reviewing your file extensively over the past month," she began, her voice losing some of its corporate edge. "Your work quality, when completed, ranks among the top 15% in the company. Your client retention rate is 92%, well above our departmental average of 7. Your innovative solutions have saved 3 major accounts in the past 18 months. Michael blinked, confused. This wasn't how firing speeches typically started. He remained silent, afraid that speaking would somehow change the trajectory of wherever this conversation was heading. However, Victoria continued, and there was the word he'd been waiting for. "Your attendance record tells a different story. 17 late arrivals in 6 months, 9 missed meetings, 6 early departures, 3 instances of leaving during the workday." She rattled off the statistics like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "I know," Michael said quietly, shame heating his face. "I've been trying to improve the situation, but it's complicated." "My daughter, Sophie," Victoria interrupted. 7 years old, attending Riverside Elementary, mother left the family 3 years ago, no contact since. "You're managing sole custody with limited support system." She paused, watching his reaction. "Human Resources keeps comprehensive files, Mr. Davies." The clinical summary of his life's greatest struggle felt like a violation, but Michael forced himself to remain composed. "Yes, that's accurate. I'm doing my best to balance everything. But I understand if the company needs someone who can be more consistently available." The mask cracked. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. The hard professional exterior softened around the edges, revealing something unexpectedly human underneath. She looked away for a moment, focusing on her reflection in the bathroom mirror before speaking again. "My father raised me alone from the age of 8, she said quietly, each word seeming to cost her something. "My mother died of cancer. Suddenly, he was a widowed aerospace engineer with a daughter, and no idea how to braid hair, or, by training brass, or explain why life was so unfair." Michael felt his defensive posture relax slightly, caught off guard by this revelation. In 3 months, Victoria had shared exactly 0 personal details with anyone at the company. She was professional efficiency personified. A woman who seemed to exist only in conference rooms and quarterly reports. "He worked 3 jobs for 2 years to keep us afloat," Victoria continued, her voice taking on a distant quality, as if she was seeing scenes from her past. Nights at a manufacturing plant, weekends doing freelance engineering consultations. He'd sleep for hours if we were lucky. I learned to make my own school lunches by 3rd grade because he'd fall asleep at the kitchen table trying to pack them the night before. She turned back to face Michael directly, and he saw something in her eyes he'd never expected: understanding. I watched my father destroy himself, trying to be both parents, trying to prove he could do it all alone. He missed my 8th grade graduation because he fell asleep after a double shift. He wasn't at my high school soccer finals because he was working. Not because he didn't care, but because the system offered him no alternative. The proposition. Michael's phone buzzed again in his pocket. Another text from Mrs. Chen. No doubt. Sophie's panic likely escalating with each passing minute. Victoria noticed his involuntary glance downward. Your daughter needs you right now, she stated simply, and that's exactly why I'm not firing you. In fact, I'm offering you something entirely different. She reached into her small clutch purse and withdrew a business card, holding it out to him. Michael took it with trembling fingers, reading the elegant script. Pinnacle Solutions, Flexible Operations Initiative. The company is launching a pilot program next quarter, Victoria explained, her voice returning to its professional cadence but retaining that new warmth underneath. Remote work with flexible scheduling for high-performing employees who require accommodation for life circumstances. 3 days working from home, 2 days in office for essential meetings. Results-based evaluation rather than time-based metrics. Michael stared at the card, afraid to believe what he was hearing. You want me to join this program? I want you to lead it, Victoria corrected. You understand both the technical requirements of the work and the practical challenges of balancing professional excellence with personal responsibility. You can help us develop protocols that actually work for real people with real lives. Not just theoretical policies that look good in a handbook, but fail in practice. His mind spun with the implications. Being home when Sophie got off the school bus, attending her school plays without requesting time off, working during her sleep hours instead of rushing through tasks during artificial office hours. The possibility felt too enormous to grasp. The why behind it all. Why? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Why risk this on someone whose numbers have been problematic? Victoria's expression hardened slightly, but not with anger. With determination. Because my father died of a heart attack at 53. Mr. Davies. Exhaustion, stress, and the cumulative toll of years spent choosing between being a good parent and being a reliable employee. He never got to see me graduate from business school. Never met my husband. Never knew that the little girl he sacrificed everything for became successful. Her voice remained steady, but Michael heard the pain underneath. I built my career on efficiency and results, and I won't apologize for that. But efficiency shouldn't require human sacrifice. Talent is worth accommodating, not discarding because it comes in packaging that doesn't fit traditional molds. She moved toward the bathroom door, her hand resting on the handle. The position comes with a 12% salary increase to reflect your leadership responsibilities. HR will prepare the transfer paperwork after the holidays. We'll meet in early January to discuss implementation details. Michael felt emotions swelling in his chest, gratitude and relief so powerful he could barely speak. Thank you, Ms. Hayes. I don't know what to say. This means everything to Sophie and me. The unspoken bond. Victoria paused, turning back to face him one final time. This conversation, the personal aspects of it, stays between us. Mr. Davies, I have a professional reputation to maintain in this organization. People respect strength and decisiveness, not sentiment. There was the faintest hint of vulnerability in her eyes as she said it, a brief glimpse of the 8-year-old girl who'd lost her mother and watched her father work himself to death trying to fill the void. Of course, Michael agreed. Our secret. At work, I'm still Ms. Hayes, she reminded him, but without the usual sharp edge. Now, go home to your daughter. Tell her that sometimes adults have the power to fix things, to make them better. Tell her that someone understood. She unlocked the door and stepped aside, gesturing for him to leave first. As Michael passed her, He caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror, saw her take a deep breath and straighten her shoulders, watched her professional mask slide back into place, like armor being donned for battle. The race home Michael moved through the hotel lobby in a daze, his borrowed suit feeling lighter somehow, the weight he'd carried for 3 years beginning to lift. The December air hit him as he exited, cold and sharp and cleansing. He fumbled for his car keys, his hands shaking with adrenaline and relief. The drive home blurred past streetlights and holiday decorations. His mind kept replaying the conversation, analyzing each word, afraid he'd misunderstood something crucial. But no, it was real. Victoria Hayes, the woman everyone feared, had thrown him a lifeline pulled from her own painful past. Mrs. Chen met him at the apartment door, her lined face creased with worry. She finally cried herself to sleep about 10 minutes ago, she whispered. Poor little lamb. She kept saying, everyone leaves, everyone disappears. Michael thanked her profusely, apologizing for the late night and the emotional burden. He pressed extra money into her hand over her protests, then headed straight for Sophie's bedroom. The promise renewed. His daughter lay curled in her bed, surrounded by the army of stuffed animals that had to be arranged in precise order each night. Her favorite bunny, Mr. Hopsworth, was clutched tightly against her chest. Tear tracks stained her cheeks, visible in the glow from her nightlight that projected stars across the ceiling. Michael sat carefully on the edge of her bed, his heart breaking and mending simultaneously. This beautiful, resilient, fragile child was his entire world. Every late night, every missed meeting, every moment of exhaustion was worth it for her. As if sensing his presence, Sophie's eyes fluttered open. Daddy. Her voice was small and uncertain. You're really here? I'm really here, Soph, he said softly. Using the nickname she'd recently started saying was too babyish, but tonight wouldn't protest. I'll always come back to you. Always. She sat up slightly, studying his face as if checking for truth. Promise. Even when work needs you. Michael thought about Victoria's words, about the future that had just opened up before them. I promise. And guess what? Things are going to change. I'm going to be home a lot more. I'll be here most afternoons when you get off the school bus. Sophie's eyes widened, sudden hope replacing the fear. Really truly. Not just sometimes. Really truly, Michael confirmed. I'll still have to work, but I can do it from here, from home. Which means more time for us. More time for everything. His daughter considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. Can we make chocolate chip pancakes tomorrow morning? The kind with faces. Michael laughed, the sound carrying 3 years of pent-up tension finally releasing. Absolutely. With whipped cream smiles and strawberry eyes. Satisfied with this concrete evidence of improved circumstances, Sophie settled back into her pillows, her grip on Mr. Hopsworth relaxing. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. More than all the stars in your nightlight. He stayed until her breathing deepened into genuine sleep, watching the rise and fall of her small chest, thinking about second chances and unexpected allies and the power of shared understanding across generational pain. Building something new. For weeks following the holiday party moved with surprising speed. Michael had half expected the opportunity to evaporate like a dream upon waking. But the paperwork arrived in his inbox on December 28. Official transfer documents, position descriptions, salary adjustment confirmations, all bearing Victoria Hayes' digital signature and the stamp of Human Resources approval. By mid-January, Michael was transforming their apartment's small second bedroom from a catch-all storage space into a functional home office. Sophie appointed herself the interior design consultant, insisting that his workspace needed character and warmth. This translated into a string of fairy lights framing the window, a rotating gallery of her crayon artwork taped to the walls, and a small succulent plant she'd selected at the garden center. It's a cactus, Daddy, she explained with 7-year-old authority. The lady at the store said even people who kill regular plants can keep these alive. So it's perfect for you. Michael laughed, accepting the gentle mockery. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Soph. You're good at other stuff, she assured him generously. like pancakes and bedtime stories and hugs. Those skills, he reflected, mattered infinitely more than his ability to maintain houseplants. The initiative takes shape. The Flexible Operations Initiative launched with 5 carefully selected employees, each bringing different circumstances and perspectives. There was Jennifer, a software developer, caring for her mother with early onset Alzheimer's. Ramon, an account manager whose son had autism and required specialized therapy appointments 3 times weekly. Denise, recently divorced and sharing custody of 3 children under 10. Marcus, a data analyst whose wife was undergoing treatment for breast cancer, and Michael, heading the entire operation while managing his own situation with Sophie. Victoria had chosen brilliantly. Each team member understood that this opportunity represented more than career advancement. It was survival, dignity, and the chance to be present for the people who needed them most without sacrificing professional identity. Michael threw himself into developing systems that acknowledged reality rather than fighting it. Communication protocols that didn't require immediate responses, but ensured nothing fell through cracks. Project management software that tracked deliverables rather than hours logged. Client meeting schedules that could accommodate school pickups and medical appointments. The first month was rough. Everyone adjusting to new rhythms and troubleshooting technological issues. But Michael noticed something remarkable happening. People weren't just meeting expectations, they were exceeding them. Jennifer's code quality improved without the stress of rushing between office and home. Ramon's client satisfaction scores jumped 15 points when he could schedule calls during his son's therapy sessions rather than frantically rescheduling. Denise stopped arriving at meetings, exhausted and distracted, her focus sharpening when she could work during her kids' school hours and be present during their evenings. The ripple effect. By March, the initiative's metrics were undeniable. Productivity across the pilot group had increased by 23%. Client retention improved. Project completion times decreased. Employee satisfaction surveys showed dramatic positive shifts, with several team members reporting significant improvements in their mental health and family relationships. Upper management took notice. The CFO requested a presentation. The CEO mentioned the program in an all-hands meeting. HR began receiving inquiries from employees asking how they might qualify for the next expansion phase. Victoria maintained her professional distance in public settings. Still, the demanding director who expected excellence and tolerated no excuses, but in their private meetings, to review program progress, Michael caught glimpses of satisfaction in her expression, heard warmth in her voice when she discussed the team's successes. "You've built something sustainable," she told him during their quarterly review. "Not just a policy accommodation, but a cultural shift. That's significantly harder to accomplish." "I learned from watching my daughter," Michael admitted. "She doesn't care about my excuses or explanations. She cares whether I show up. Results matter more than methods." "Seems like that principle applies professionally to..." Victoria nodded, something like respect in her eyes. "How is Sophie doing?" The question surprised him. They rarely ventured into personal territory during business discussions. "Thriving," he said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "Her teacher says she's more engaged in class. The nightmares have essentially stopped. She's talking about joining the science club and maybe trying soccer in the fall." "Good," Victoria said simply, but the word carried layers of meaning. The family picnic. Quinn. The invitation arrived for Pinnacle Solutions' annual family picnic in June. Michael hesitated only briefly before RSVPing for himself and Sophie. The event would be held at Riverside Park, complete with games, catered food, and activities designed to show the company's family-friendly culture. Sophie was simultaneously excited and nervous. She'd never attended one of his work events, and the prospect of meeting his colleagues and bosses produced a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. "What if they don't like me?" she asked while picking out her outfit the night before. "Impossible," Michael assured her. "You're the most likable person I know. You have to say that. You're my dad." "I say it because it's true," he corrected, kissing the top of her head. The park was beautiful on that perfect June morning. All green grass and blue sky and comfortable temperature. Employees and their families spread across the grounds, children running between activity stations while adults navigated the complex social dynamics of mixing professional and personal spheres. Sophie clung to Michael's hand initially, overwhelmed by the crowd, but when she spotted the face painting booth, her natural curiosity overcame her shyness. "Can I get a butterfly?" she asked, pointing to another child sporting elaborate wings across her cheek. Of course, Michael agreed, and they joined the line. An unexpected encounter, he sensed her presence before seeing her. Victoria Hayes stood a few feet away, watching them with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. She wore casual jeans and a white blouse, her usual corporate armor set aside for the day. Without the power suits and severe styling, she looked younger, more approachable. "Ms. Hayes," Michael greeted, surprised. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Victoria, please," she corrected gently. "We're not in the office." Her gaze shifted to Sophie, who was studying her with frank curiosity. And this must be the famous Sophie. "You know about me?" Sophie asked, surprised. "Your father mentions you occasionally," Victoria said with a slight smile. "He says you're quite the artist, and that you're joining the science club." Sophie beamed at the recognition. "I want to learn about volcanoes and space, and how come cats always land on their feet." She paused, then added with characteristic bluntness, "You're pretty. Daddy said you were scary at work, but you don't look scary to me." Michael felt heat rush to his face. "Sophie, I didn't exactly say scary. I said Ms. Hayes was a very strong and accomplished." Victoria's laugh cut through his stammering explanation. "Genuine and warm. It's fine, Mr. Davies. I cultivate that reputation quite intentionally. Though I appreciate your daughter's assessment that I'm not frightening outside the office." They moved through the line together. An unlikely trio, united by circumstances neither adult would have predicted 6 months earlier. Sophie chatted about school and her stuffed animal collection, and her theories about why dinosaurs went extinct. Victoria listened with apparent interest, occasionally asking questions that showed she was genuinely engaged rather than performing polite attention. When Sophie's turn came for face painting, she chose an elaborate rainbow butterfly design. Victoria and Michael stood together watching the artist's work, a comfortable silence settling between them. The unspoken understanding, "Thank you," Michael said quietly, "for all of this, the program, the opportunity. You changed our lives." Victoria was quiet for a moment before responding. "I changed a policy. You did the actual work of transforming both your situation and the program's outcomes. Don't diminish your own accomplishment." Still, Michael insisted, "Without your willingness to take a risk on someone with problematic metrics, you didn't have problematic metrics." Victoria interrupted, "You had impossible circumstances being measured by inappropriate standards." "There's a difference," she paused. "My father never got this chance. No one ever looked at his situation and thought maybe the system could flex rather than breaking the person. I can't give him that time back. But I can make sure other talented people don't face the same choice between career and family." Sophie finished with her butterfly, her face transformed into a canvas of brilliant colors. She ran over to show them, spinning so they could appreciate the full effect. "Beautiful," Victoria said sincerely. "You're going to be the star of the whole picnic." Sophie grinned, then surprised both adults by hugging Victoria quickly before running toward the bounce house she'd spotted across the park. Victoria looked momentarily startled by the gesture, then something soft crossed her expression. "She's remarkable," Victoria said, watching Sophie bounce with wild abandon. "You've done well, Mr. Davies." "Michael," he said. "If we're being informal today." Victoria nodded, acknowledging the shift. "She's lucky to have you, Michael. A parent who shows up, who keeps trying, who builds solutions instead of making excuses. That matters more than perfect attendance records." The long view as the afternoon progressed. Michael watched Sophie playing with other children, her laughter carrying across the park. She looked so different from the anxious, clingy child she'd been 6 months ago. The stability of his reliable presence had given her permission to relax, to trust that her world wouldn't collapse if she let her guard down. The initiative had expanded to 20 employees now. With plans for further growth, other departments were adopting similar flexible approaches. The company's recruitment efforts highlighted the program, attracting talented candidates who valued work-life integration. What began as accommodation for a handful of people was becoming embedded in corporate culture. Victoria found him again later. As the picnic was winding down, Sophie was exhausted, sleeping against his shoulder with her butterfly face paint smudged but still visible. "This stays between us," Victoria said, echoing her words from that bathroom conversation months ago. But this time, she gestured to encompass the whole scene. The families scattered across the park, the children playing, the evidence of lives being lived rather than merely survived. What we built here, it started with understanding that people are more than their productivity metrics. Michael nodded, understanding. Our secret, that sometimes the best business decisions are the most human ones. Victoria smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Exactly, though I'd appreciate you not spreading that around. I have a reputation as a hard ass to maintain." "Your secret's safe with me," Michael promised, "along with the fact that you're actually kind of wonderful." She rolled her eyes, but didn't dispute it. As she walked away, Michael felt Sophie stir against his shoulder. "Is that your boss?" She mumbled sleepily. "Yes," Michael confirmed. "I like her," Sophie declared. "She's nice, even if she pretends not to be." Michael smiled, pressing a kiss to his daughter's paint-smudged forehead. "Yeah, Soph, me too." As they walked to the car, the June sun warm on their faces. Michael reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. A desperate moment at a holiday party. A conversation in a bathroom. Words that were supposed to stay secret but had transformed into something larger than either of them had imagined. Sometimes the help you need comes from unexpected sources. Sometimes, the people who seem the most intimidating are the ones who understand your struggles best. Sometimes a single conversation can change not just lives, but ripple outward to touch dozens more. Sophie was asleep before they left the parking lot, her butterfly face paint leaving smudges on the car seat. Michael didn't mind. They were the marks of a perfect day, of a life finally in balance, of a future that looked nothing like the desperate struggle of their past. The words, "This stays between us," had opened a door to everything that mattered most, and for that gift, for that understanding, for that second chance, Michael would be grateful every single day. The Eondism is, the most powerful transformations begin with the quietest moments of human connection. When we dare to be vulnerable, to admit our struggles, and to help each other beyond the boundaries of what's expected, we create change that echoes far beyond our own lives.